the rain came to La Vuelta for Stage 6. The day after Soler had a sunny finale, taking a spectacular win, and Rudy Mollard edged Fred Wright to become the leader of the race. The Frenchman would be making the most of his photo opportunities, grabbing selfies wherever he could. Fred Wright, the leader of the Young Riders competition, just 2 seconds down overall on the Frenchman. And so we were about to bid farewell to Bilbao. The rain clouds were gathering, certainty of storms later on. How would anyone cope? Primož Roglič with a job to do if he wanted to go back into red. Fred Wright himself dreaming about what might have been, just 2 seconds in arrears of Mollard. Well, Groupama were going to set themselves the task of protecting that jersey, and they did, but protecting yourself from the inclement weather was going to be a major task on this day, not least of course because of the terrain. 2 climbs of Category 1 very, very late at the end of the day, including a very sketchy descent, made all the more troubling because of the weather that was coming. Well, the break formed far more easily than it had the day previously. 10 up the road and some down upon it. Derek Cataldo, one of those that came unstuck, and on the very same corner the peloton was hampered itself. The drive then was out front to try and wind in the breakaway. Julian Alaphilippe doing a monster turn, the world champion working of course for Remco Evenepoel. Well, as the gap came down, Mark Padun decided to push on out of the breakaway. The Ukrainian looked to have a handsome lead. 2 minutes back to the peloton. 42 seconds back to those he had shared that break with. The problem was the rain was coming in ever greater intensity, and so were the nerves. They were starting to shred. Mark Padun took the descent between the 2 major peaks of the day very, very carefully, and his advantage just started to ebb. So did the chances of many of the main GC favourites on this day. Fausto Maldonado dropped back out of the breakaway for Quick-Step Alpha Final to help man the pumps for Remco Evenepoel. And so it was that we came to our final test. The favourites all together, that wouldn't last long. Who would be bravest of them? And the answer was Jay Vine. Still with Padun up the road, Vine set off. Simon Yates thought that was a good move and decided he would try something similar. It wasn't to be. Well, visibility was starting to narrow, and so were the chances for the likes of Mikkel Landa, telling Wout Poels just to ride on and do what he could. Same deal eventually for Remco Evenepoel. No teammates left around him. He sped off with Enric Mas for company, leaving Primož Roglič ultimately in his wake. Was the chances of Roglič starting to sink in the rain here? A question that can only be answered over the next few days. As for Jay Vine, he bridged over and found Padun. He came straight by him and pushed on for what would be an amazing victory if he could hold off the likes of Remco Evenepoel. Evenepoel and Enric Mas were on his case, and so indeed was Ayuso. Some great individual efforts. Meanwhile, everyone else amongst the group of main favourites were hanging on the back wheel of Primož Roglič. Of course they were. They knew he wanted to put this fire out, and in the groom it was raging. It had been set by Jay Vine, and as he went into a cloud, he won it. A lightning strike, you might say. We'll see whether it's repeated. Evenepoel in second place, just 1 second clear of Enric Mas, and then we waited for Primož Roglič and everybody else. Duly they came home, over a minute down. Jay Vine absolutely delighted with his performance, a stunning one as well. A man going from virtual to reality, you might say. Taking the day 15 seconds clear of Evenepoel, and look at the names in his wake, and a wake-up call for many, was 1:37 in the end, was the gap of that Roglic group. Ayuso doing a fine job, but look at the time gaps that started to open up elsewhere. They were huge. Rudy Mollard having to cede the leader's jersey to Remco Evenepoel. He takes over. 21 seconds is the advantage of Evenepoel over Rudy Mollard. Enric Mas surprised at the end of the day to find himself upon the podium. Well, he's there by rights. Primož Roglic 1:01 down, ahead of Ayuso, who rounds out the top 5. But look at the big names who are further down the order. Richard Carapaz, 2 minutes and 56 off the pace. And he's not alone. Big gaps there could be more tomorrow. Well, there is a huge climb dead centre of tomorrow's race. Stage 7, the run to Cistierna. A long climb with a rolling plateau afterwards. Another great course has been set for us. Another great task, which will mean that this race reaches the 1/3 margin. Can't wait.